Hey
Yeah.
everybody.
Hello, everybody. This is Derek. I'm the girl on the forums doing daily drops like a madman. We have our full regiment here of concept artist and design team. 50 Shades of Nelson's back at the Buzz Cave. Mr. Steve Curtis is here. NATO, Wolf, and tons of other people here. Tonight we're going to go over some 3D models. Tonight on the art side, I want to start designing, I guess, orthographic top-down view of what our first arena may look like. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to put everyone on the spot, especially Mr. NATO, since he is the man with the vision. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. With that stated, how the heck is everybody doing tonight?
I am exceptional. NATO?
I'll do, I guess.
I'm enjoying that Steve is exceptional.
That's good. Mr. J, how you doing?
I'm pretty fantastic.
I'm well-rounded. I have to shut that down. Okay, hey, anyway, design team prospects. What have you guys been working on this week?
I've mostly been putting my computer back together because after it blew up. But so basically, there's a bit of a problem, which is attributes, which are essentially the statistics that make characters work. So there are a sort of set of traditional sort of attributes that would go with a RPG or an MMO, such as, just strength, dexterity, or agility, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, perception, luck, and various sort of defenses as well. Similar to like
real quick, because you just talked about luck, and I'm sorry I'm stepping all over you. I like the ability of buying luck, where things just kind of happen for you. Can we do that in this game? Can that be a god skill, or you pay attribute
well,
points?
This is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So we have that sort of set of attributes, or that side of attributes, which are much more like the tabletop RPG / MMO style attributes, which really speak to what your character is, and kind of give the player a sense of what their character it gives a sort of well-rounded appearance of the character. So if you have a character with a high strength and a high constitution, you know they're probably a tank. If they have high dexterity and a high intelligence, they're probably a mage of some kind or something like that. On the other hand, we have combat stats, which usually have things like sort of health regeneration, armor, dodge, attack power, attack speed, that kind of thing. So what I'm currently having a problem with is marrying the two concepts together. So coming up with a system which gives players quite a high level understanding of what their character is and what their character can do, while having the quite in-depth, quite close statistics available for players to work out the actual bounds of what their character can do in the numbers, as it were.
Right. What are you going to base the attacks and all the attributes on? Is it going to be 1 through 100? Or is it going to be like classic tabletop D&D where it's 1 through 18, and of course you get better than 18 with like magic and extra points?
I haven't really come to a conclusion on that front. At the moment it is pretty open-ended.
I personally like the 1 through
them.
100. 1 through 100 is easy.
The thing about having a limited range is it kind of means that if you have, if you want to expand on it, you can end up breaking some things. It's nice to have a general range in mind. So you can say that in theory nothing would go over 100, but I wouldn't institute a really hard cap at sort of nothing can go over 100, as it were. But I'm not quite at that point of actually working out the numbers so much. I'm just trying to work out a way of marrying the two systems, marrying the combat with the kind of essence of a character in a way that doesn't feel really clunky. Keeping
What I
in mind,
have... Go ahead.
I want to keep in mind that when you're playing in an arena, you are engaging in combat directly all the time, and that means that you will be focusing more on your combat abilities rather than your character's actual your character's sort of essence abilities, or however we group it out. But it's things like working out if your character has a strength stat, what does that affect? If your character has a dexterity stat, how does that affect? Do we actually want to have these sort of high-level descriptive stats at all, or do we want to just have the combat stats and then let players come up with their own flavour for their characters, or what? It's that kind of thought process. So I'm interested to know how people feel about it.
What are you envisioning that you'd be able to change that, or once that it's permanent as far as stats?
What do you mean? Who changes what?
The player being able to change their own stats.
I mean, as they level up, they can spend more points on Dex or Strength or Constitution, something like that?
I'm kind of talking about, like, say if you decide, oh, I put all this into strength, but really I like doing this better, I should have put more points, and I'm assuming that you have a finite amount of points that you can spend on things.
I'm not even at that point. Really what I'm trying to do is design a system that can simulate all the different character types that we'd like to have, and all the different sort of classes we want to have, and then deriving how we want to enumerate that system, and then working out how we want the player to interact with that system.
Are you
So
looking
in theory, I wouldn't have a problem with characters being able to modify. Well, actually, no. The thing is, how I'm envisioning it is you create a character. The first thing you do is you give it a name, and you choose a class. That class gives you some base information about your character. It gives you some base stats, which are different for each class, and it gives you a set of base abilities, which are the sort of activated things you use in battles, for which attributes modify. And then as you buy items, as your character levels up in a match, these attributes increase and improve. Buying items gives you the ability to customize your attributes as you go, and leveling just gives them a sort of flat increase throughout the match. Outside of matches, I wanted to have the permanent items give a stat boost to your attributes on a sort of flat level, and then a small percentage of that would translate from your permanent items into a match. So it might
I
be
like
sort
that
of
idea.
0.1% or something if you're really low level, or one. It would be a small, effective boost. I mean, this comes in somewhat to the concept of having randomized permanent items. If you have classed-based items, or if you have leveled items, you can say that a level 10 item for the class whatever transfers 10% of the item's strength bonus to your character in game, something like that, for permanent items. But it's really building the system first for matches, and then working out kind of how we modify that, how we change things.
Are you looking for something as basic as, say, strength, like naming the different attributes, or do you have them named out?
It's more sort of working out. I mean, for instance, I've got a list here of which I read out before, generic MMO/RPG attributes like strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, perception, luck, health, and then defenses like dodging and whatnot. And I'm trying to work out what is the minimum we can give a character to make that character feel well and decently rounded to the player on the surface, and then how do we want to link those sort of high-level surface understandable from the player's point of view, statistics to the combat mechanics underneath, which the player may not immediately be able to comprehend, but over time they'll learn how the game works, they'll learn how those stats interact in specifics.
What do you mean about the minimum to get? You mean the number was?
No, I mean, if you're trying to describe a character, any character, in theory, what is the minimum kind of what are the minimum information you need to convey? So, for example, if you wanted to convey how strong a character was, you would want a strength statistic. If you wanted to convey how agile a character is, you want to have an agility statistic. The big problem I'm having at the moment is trying to work out a set of stats that are easy to understand, conceptualize from the player's point of view. So if you look at a list of stats a character has, you should in theory be able to look at it and go, okay, I have a general idea of what this character can do, what this character type is, whether it's a mage or whether it's a warrior or a tank or whatever.
From the number of them, or from what the stats are? Like, are you saying like there would be certain certain characters, for say, wouldn't have an intelligence stat and others would?
No, it's very much like D&D, as I can see Derek pulling up, in the sense that all characters have the same stats. It's kind of the weighting of those stats that defines what the character is good at and whatnot.
Well, Chris, don't you think whatever system we use, you kind of get that information just by comparatively looking at their stats? Like a tank, you're going to look at all the stats and the strength's going to be cranked way up.
Yeah, the thing is, if you look at there would be two ways in these two systems I've outlined. So the very combat heavy system, which is a little difficult to understand if you haven't played the game before, compared to the very sort of conceptually easy side of things, where you're using quite simple terms to convey, like strength, dexterity, constitution, that kind of thing, which is quite easy for new players to grasp and get a hold of. It's like, if you have a strength and an agility, you can tell that those are two distinct different stats and they're two completely different things, and they don't interact with each other. But if you look at sort of dodge and armor or attack speed and ability power, that kind of thing, you start to lose how clear it is to new players or to any player.
What we can do is...
Yes, you can look at how much armor a tank has or how much health a tank has, but is it easier to look at how much, say, constitution that character has for new players? It's kind of working out at what level we want to have.
Can I make a suggestion, or may I make a suggestion? Again,
go ahead.
Going back to my tabletop days, the sheet that I have pulled up here, thanks to D&D Wizards of the Coast, how hard would it be to, as you make your character, you have you name it, you have a base class, say we're making a fighter, and it's an Alethean fighter for a tank, so then you get to choose, what it looks like. Within limits, I understand that it's height, body type, hair, some markings, and then the sheet comes up. And then for new players and old players alike, whenever you plug in your strength and dex, okay, say your dex is an 18. In D&D, that's as high as you can get starting out. That gives you a +3 to your armor class. So then whenever you plug in your armor, your start base armor, the AC there is your armor class, then you add the +3 to it. So I'm going to geek out on you. So you have leather armor. That gives you an 11 armor class. But because of your dexterity, underneath that, it is now 11, 12. It's a 13. The higher the armor class, the harder it is for you to get hit. If we could come up with a system like that that's sheet-based, tied into your character, maybe that will make people go, this is kind of cool.
Somewhat similar to like how most MMOs do it. The only difference is that most things, like, you wouldn't be given a stat set to add, or you wouldn't have a randomly generated stat list for balance reasons. It wouldn't be necessarily fair if you could create two warriors and have, after buying no items, after not getting any experience, really fresh out of the world with nothing, after doing nothing, have two characters which are have a different powering level. That would be unbalanced, that would be unfair to players. So you wouldn't introduce a randomization sort of system like that.
Chris, are you essentially just talking about how to convey that information, or how to figure out what information?
It's a way of basically. Let me readdress the problem. Essentially, we have a list of statistics which we want to use for combat. Now these are going to be things which people generally understand, so think like a character's health, or how much armor that character is wearing, or how much damage they do when they hit someone with a sword or something. Now, how we design that is one set of challenges. I have a general idea of how I want to do that based on most.
Yeah, and that's the relatively easy side you're talking about.
Well, in a sense, the other set of challenges is how do we convey that to the player, because I feel that if we just have the base stats for combat listed, we might get a disconnect between players going, well, I don't really know what having a character with high ability power means, or having a high attack speed means.
Right.
But they do know what a character with high agility means. There are two systems. I know I keep going on about MOBA games, but I think they're a really good kind of breakdown of RPG stats into a combat system. League of Legends has a very combat-driven system in the sense that characters have various different things like attack power, ability power, and very combat-heavy driven things, whereas characters in Dota 2 have they have three stats, which are health, agility, and intelligence. They have a primary stat, which is the one they gain more of as the game goes on. And then all the other information is distilled from those statistics. Now, when the player buys items to improve their statistics, they will buy items that improve their attack power, their attack speed, or their agility, or health, intelligence or health or whatever. But the difference is that it's a much more friendly system, I feel, to have kind of more simple terms that then break down into more complex terms as you learn more and you look into the game some more and you grasp it better, and you really learn the mechanics as you go, rather than kind of hitting a learning curve wall of just having a bunch of statistics and going, well, I don't really know how much I don't really know what to make of these. The other side of that coin is essentially, because we know we're going to want to have a certain amount of PvE content rather than the PvP matches, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have all the statistics be framed in that PvE match-based combat system. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you want to have a system where characters use their base strength stat for anything in particular, or use their straight agility to see how high they jump or whatever like that. But it to me makes more sense to have a system where I think information is distilled downwards from some base stats, and
So,
yeah.
Are you talking about, like, okay, if you level up, and let's just say if you're in control of all your points, and you level up and you go, okay, I want to put a point into agility. You put a point into agility, and then that opens up another menu, which is like where you can decide in this agility menu that you can go, okay, I'm going to put that into dodge, I'm going to put that into jump, I'm going to put that into run speed. You get to decide how many smaller points, I guess, that you would actually pinpoint into exactly what you want your character to do.
I'm not actually envisioning a point-based system at all, for one thing.
But I mean, is that the kind of concept that you're talking about?
If you mean having a sort of tiered system where you have agility, which contains a set of attributes which players which control how a character is. So agility might affect your character's movement speed or their ability to to use bows or something, that kind of thing. In a way, yes. Well, I'm not sure. Essentially, I don't know which system I think is better. I like the cleanness of having just the combat stats because essentially that gives the player a lot more room to crunch the maths, as it were, to work out what they want to do, and they don't have to go through and work out, okay, so my agility bonus is this, how does this affect my dodge? They can just look at their dodge stat directly and just go, okay, that's my dodge, I want to improve my dodge, I'll buy a dodge boosting item. But
Tell us your idea then. So, I mean, I know you're not dancing around it, but let's hear your idea, then maybe we can build off that. Does that make sense?
This is exactly the problem. I don't have, like, a strong idea.
I got you.
I mean, I'm playing around with these two ideas, which is to have, like I say, just have the combat stats as a flat thing, or to have the combat stats hidden underneath a layer of kind of cosmetic stats, which as a designer I don't like the concept of, but I think it improves usability, which essentially affect. So if you have a high strength, you might have a high attack damage, which is like a martial combat, so swords, axes, hitting people
Right.
with things.
Melee.
Melee, yeah, that's the word. So yeah, if you have a high strength, then that will affect your attack damage. That means you do more damage with a melee weapon. If you have a higher agility, that might mean you do more range.
Hand-eye coordination, yeah. Or, like you said, in case of using magic, manual dexterity.
Yeah. Now.
So, are you talking about, since you're saying that you don't put points in, you buy or you find or buy items that add these points? And are you saying that you're not sure if you want it to be like I'm buying the jump boots, or if it's just I'm buying the agility boots?
It's kind of like that, yeah. That's not a bad example.
So you're not sure how
you
you're going to break it down.
I'm not sure how It's not like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't know which method works better.
I personally like to have as much control of my character as possible. Going back to World of Warcraft, I played a feral druid, and there's some really cool outfits, but they're meant for healers. And if you're going to go into an instance, you don't want to have this pretty dress on that doesn't give you any stats for strength or for tanking purposes. And it's they're always linked, plus so and so for DPS, plus so and so for this. Does that make sense?
I think it really depends on whether you're going to give people the ability to change, to go, okay, I mean, I'm not going to use, especially if it's finite, I'm not going to use, it turns out I don't really need to run that fast. I would rather be able to jump higher or something, and so if they could switch it, then they can experiment with it.
I think one of the things you're missing, Wolf, is that a character's stats, in my concept, the character stats are based on a class. So you pick your class, you pick what you want your character to do. And as I said, all characters have the same stat sheet, it's just how their characters are weighted. So if you pick a intelligence-based character, if you pick a mage, you want lots of intelligence, for example. If you pick a warrior, you want lots of strength. But the thing is, that base is affected by your character's level within a match, which resets per matches, and it's also affected by the items you buy in a match, which is also reset per match. So if you're having, if you play one game and you go, okay, so I bought way too much health for my character, and I didn't buy any damage items, and I didn't improve my damage at all, then you go, okay, next game I should buy more damage items and less health items.
I thought it was permanent.
Yeah, so did I. I was under the impression that we're making one character, and that's what you got to run around in. And then you just build on top of it.
He's talking about a combination of both. Your level will go up, and that will be the permanent thing. But you can also buy non-permanent items that will
Well,
help you through a match. Is that
kind
not
of.
right?
Levels. There are sort of two leveling systems. One's internal to matches and it goes back to level 1 each match, which is kind of more. Think of it more like an adrenaline type thing. It's how much you're into the battle rather than your like character's level, and then you have kind of out of match ranks, I've called them, which is essentially your character's level between matches, and as that improves you gain access to more abilities for your character to swap in and out, and your character's base stats will go up a little bit, but it's more about the specialization rather than giving your character more power. The whole idea is to avoid cases where not to avoid cases, to encourage players to try different mechanics, try different methods. Kind of I know people who play WoW a lot in PvP, you can find situations where you have, for example, a feral druid doing tons and tons and tons of damage and being more powerful than anything else in the game. So everyone starts playing feral druids, and if there's no way to counter it, if there's no way to get around the fact that the feral druid is so powerful, it just becomes pointless to play any other class. In the model that I'm trying to build, there should always be a character type that can not beat hands down that kind of really powerful class, but is a natural counter to it. You may have to design and play that character slightly differently than you normally would to effectively beat this powerful class, but it's all based on how you develop your character in a match and how you design your character in the match as you go. So it's kind of more about making PvP combat less stagnant, which is one of the problems WoW has.
So every match, you'll start off. Everybody starts off at level 1 as far as the match levels go.
Basically, yes. You will get a small bonus for any items you have on your character, the permanent items you have in your character.
Okay.
You also should have a more specialized character based on your rank. So the higher your rank you will have, the more specialized your abilities are. So if you play a mage, if you have a high-ranked mage, you might have specifically a frost mage that has lots of powers to slow people down, so that and freeze them and do other things, so that other characters can do all the damage. Whereas if you had a fire mage, you might have one that does lots of AoE damage, but it's still based off the same base class.
So permanent levels give you more options. That's basic, maybe a little more strength or a little more stats, but not enough to go crazy out.
Yeah. It's more about the specialization than
How long will you think the matches will go?
Anywhere between 20 to 40 minutes, something like that.
So that's a good amount of time to level up.
Yeah, and sort of come up with strategies and engage them and work out and see if your strategy is going to work. If not, adapt. I wouldn't put a hard cap on it, but that's kind of how I'd scope them out. If you absolutely beat the hell out of an enemy team, you might beat them in 20 minutes or less.
Well,
it's a long drawn-out game, it might go to 40-50 minutes or something.
Is this something that you can join in mid-game?
No, it's fixed set of 5 players. Oh, it's fixed set of 10 players, 5-side. Or possibly less. I'm imagining it's 5. It could be 3, it could be 4. It could depend on the map in particular.
Well, I mean, so if you lose connection or somebody drops for whatever reason, you pretty much lost the match.
Well, not necessarily. It can be quite. It is a risk, but this system is quite similar to other MOBA games. So things like League of Legends and Dota, and they have reasonable success in that department in the sense of their servers are pretty powerful and are quite well written. You can rejoin a game if you're disconnected, but no other players can't sort of take your slot. Now, if there might be a situation where if you are losing and a player decides, oh, we're going to lose this, I'm going to leave, you might introduce a system where they can't enter another match. They can't start another game for 20 minutes because they've abandoned the match. They didn't see through the last match. You punish them for that in some way. Or you might give players who were on a losing side or a man down a bonus for being sort of good sports and not leaving. There are ways to encourage players to not leave games.
A lot of the FPS multiplayers I've played introduce a loss of stats. It basically says you're about to bail on your teammates and could cost them heavily. Are you willing to accept this stat loss to bail out?
It's something like that, but it would be a kind of quite a meaty chunk out of your character's. Like you might even restrict how much experience they can gain between matches for the next 5 matches if they've quit, 2-3 matches in a row or something.
Yeah. I mean, you don't
count disconnects as the same thing. It would be a case of if the person has gone, right, I'm quitting because we're not going to win. If someone disconnects, that's unfortunate. You might even have a system where it goes, if there's a disconnect at the end of the game, or if someone has been disconnected for a set period of time but has reconnected, that match doesn't count towards the end to the aggregated score of the place you're fighting over, but everyone gains sort of half of what they would have. So you still gain something for having the battle, but because there are server issues and blah 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 blah, you don't gain as much. But those are quite edge cases, which we'll sign for later. But
I would like to again throw out the 1 through 100 system. 1 through 10 to me, if my strength stat is a 2 or even a 4, to me it seems weak. If we do a 1 through 100, it's easy to grasp, 100 being the best that you can be, and if I have 50 points in it, I'm still mediocre, but it looks like I have a lot of points in it. Does that make sense?
Well, it kind of depends on how you define average in that case. If you say averages, if it's a 1 to 100 scale and you say average is 10, like human base average, and you're playing heroes, then obviously you have a lot more room. If you say 1 to 100 and average is 50, then you have less room to play. Like I said before, I wouldn't necessarily have a hard cap, as it were, but it's not a bad area to design within. I might even say as low as like starting level 1 characters might have a stat range between 1 and 30, but most characters are within 20. Most characters are around 20, so maybe plus minus 10. But I'm not sure. It kind of the actual number side is to me is a secondary thing. At the moment, I'm still trying to work out how much. If we want to have these sort of, I say cosmetic, but they're not. They're overarching. They're general statistics that affect the battle statistics underneath.
I think we need to find out what stats we want to try to include. Then maybe that will help us out.
Okay. Well, I have a list here, which is.
Okay.
I've taken a look at a few of the games and had to think about how I want to break down how combat works. If you want to switch to my screen, that might be the easiest method to do it.
Please do. Mr. 50 Shades. Thank you, sir.
Tell me when you can see because I can't. Okay.
I can see.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So this list is based roughly off League of Legends, but it's also kind of taking a look at how WoW does things, how D&D does things. It's actually quite a generic combat system at the end of the day. So first off, you have movement speed, which is how fast your character can move around the environment. Then you have health, which is how much health your character has, how quickly that health returns when they're not being attacked. You have a resource pool such as mana or stamina or however much, whatever it is. and again how quickly that resource returns. You have defenses, dodge, which is avoiding attacks, sort of agility-based defense. You have armor, which is sort of resistance-based damage defense, so how much you can take being hit with a sword opposed to how you can dodge a sword. Magic resistance, which is, I'll rename that. Ability resistance, which would be it's how much you can resist special attacks. So then you have attack power, which is how much damage a standard basic attack does. So not using any of your character's abilities, how much damage your standard weapon does. Attack speed is how many hits you can get in within a second of these sort of standard base attacks, kind of like an auto attack, if you will. Next you have ability power, which is how effective your abilities are. So if you have a healing ability and a high ability power, that healing ability will heal more. If you have a damaging one, it would damage more. For reference, ability resistance, if someone throws a really damaging ability at you and you have lots of ability resistance, you'll take less damage than if you have no ability resistance, rather than armor or dodge, which is more about protecting against standard attacks. You also have cooldown reduction, which is sort of how much time a cooldown is. How often you can use a weapon. It's a period of time. Let me start that again. So a cooldown is a set period of time after you've used an ability that you can't use that ability again. Cooldown reduction reduces a percentage of that time. So if you have a cooldown reduction stat of 10%, all your cooldowns will take 10% less time to finish. And you have misc ones here. Armor penetration is how much an attack gets through armor. Magic penetration, which I'm going to call ability penetration, is how much ability resistance an attack gets through. Crit chance, which is the percentage chance a percentage chance that a hit will cause a critical hit. So if you have a 10% crit chance, that 10% of your hits, or there is a 10% chance that that hit will be critical. And the critical multiplier is basically how much times the effect of that ability or that attack would be. So if you hit someone for 10 damage and you have a crit multiplier of 2, you would do 20 damage. So yeah, that's essentially a very general breakdown of how I'd want the combat system stats to work. Each class would start out with a base value in these, and they would have a per level increase. So whenever you gain a level, you would gain a specific amount in your health, your dodge, your armor, your attack speed, whatever. You could also buy items which do directly improve these stats. Anything in bold, by the way, is just a heading, not a stat in itself. So yeah, that's essentially the combat system.
I have some concerns about the leveling system, especially when you say it's going to be like a 5-on-5 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm assuming that people who end up killing more are going to start leveling up faster. And
Yep.
so what happens when you got people who are dramatically higher level, whatever that is, but enough to where if you just stand there whacking at each other, you're going to fall down dead just because you don't have the stats.
Well, that's where tactics come in. That's where you have to work with your team to make sure you isolate the person that's got on a high level and absolutely beat them down as much as you can to kill them before their team shows up to help them. There should be no situation where 5 players can't kill 1 player, regardless of levels. unless it's
So-
you're all level 1 and he's full level.
So-
Generally a general progression. There should be no situation where one character can beat all 5 of an enemy team.
So
And
you're
it's essentially in an instantiated game like we're talking about, it's kind of the point. If your
Yeah, it
tactics
is.
are good and you can get your team ranking faster, then you're going to win.
Yes,
You know,
that is the game.
so
So you're-
you kind of want to be trying to do that and prevent
Right.
them from doing it.
Yeah, I guess that in that it's a little bit better that it is smaller. I mean, I think I played a game called Savage and Savage 2, the sequel, and it was an action game, but it was similar to this because you would level up during the matches, and you would be able, like, sometimes you would be, okay, you were taking care of something else and you haven't even seen any fighting yet and already people are leveling up, so by the time you get to certain people they already have an advantage on you, but you still had so much, since it was an action game, it was skill, so you could it wasn't all computer statistics.
I forgot I was sharing my screen there. Sorry. It's really easy to do.
Indeed. And remember, since these are instantiated, once you win and you go into another game, essentially everything resets.
Yeah.
So you can't come into a game OP'd against your opponents.
Right.
No. This is why controlling how players gain abilities, how players gain how players gain attributes between matches and how much their permanent items affect the rest of their character is so important.
Yeah, I was thinking about how like, I mean, if you were talking like 20 to 40 minutes, and if in the first 5 minutes or less one team pulls away, that could be a very unfun 20, 30 more minutes, whatever it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to implement a system where after a set period of time you can just say, okay, we surrender. You're obviously going to beat us. There's not much point us continuing, which would mean that it would be a way of quitting the game without receiving a massive penalty for doing so.
Also, maybe you spoke about maybe 5 of you team up on one, especially if there's reasons why the team might want to split up to do different things, then you might take advantage of that.
This is kind of where the map design comes in. In a lot of these MOBA games, you have what are called lanes, which are essentially direct paths between the two bases. Now, generally in most MOBA gameplay styles, you'll have what's called a laning phase, where your characters will remain inside the lane, fighting the opponent, fighting these NPC creeps that go try and get towards the enemy base, and leveling and gaining experience and gaining gold to buy items, but not sort of directly trying to engage the enemy and kill them. It's more about keeping an eye on the enemy, seeing what they're doing, maybe harassing them a bit, but while at the same time gaining experience, leveling, making sure that you can cope with them, and trying to interrupt them gaining their levels, gaining their experience. So it really comes down to how you design your levels, which is really what level design is about. It's about kind of interpreting the game rules in an environment, so they can be sort of expressed and players can understand them and use tactics to win the game.
You should check out Savage 2. It's actually a free to play. I mean, it's a free game.
It is a sort of proto MOBA
Oh, you've checked it out.
I do, now that I've looked it up quickly, I do remember it.
There might
It's
be some inspiration to.
Yeah, there's a bit of crossover. I'm just trying to look at the. It's '08. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. I know of it, but I haven't taken a sort of a real proper look at it.
It's something that I play that's kind of similar, except that it's action. I haven't played
mm.
any of the other games you're talking about, like League of Legends.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, these are the sort of base combat stats. Now, somebody who doesn't play sort of a lot of MOBAs or MMOs, such as Steve, if you look at the
Wow, called right out.
well,
Ouch.
keep mentioning it. But anyway, if you look at these stats and you think, okay, so this is supposed to be representing a character, a person. Can you look at these and go, yeah, okay, if a character has a high whatever, they are good at whatever, or would it make more sense to have, strength, agility, these sort of stats
Well,
that then correlate?
as someone who doesn't play, when I see that second list, yes, that makes more immediately processable sense to me. But I can look at the rest of the list, and I don't play them, and I still get it.
Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really more. Yeah. I mean, I look at that and go, okay, that speed relates to agility and things like that, and I mean, even without movement speed under it, speed pretty much tells me, health pretty much tells me.
Yeah.
So it's.
I felt it
Yeah,
needed a category because it was on its own.
I don't think that it will be too much of a challenge for people to grasp that.
And
Okay,
you can kind of mouse over it and have a little pop-up go, this is what this does,
Yeah. My other issue with it is that these are all relevant, these are all crucial within a match, but and within combat, but aren't necessarily mean much outside of combat. I'm not saying that any of these would help you, for instance, collect herbs or mine or build an item or something you might do outside or complete a quest or anything other than directly in combat. But to me, looking at these are more the kind of role-playing kind of information rather than
that's more
combat.
PvE versus combat.
Speaking of roleplay, and just let me throw something else in here. On my screen, you guys seen the critical hit table. How cool would it be, and you guys may think it's stupid. I'm good with that. But if you do your little computer programming egghead thing and you roll, basically, if we're doing a 100 base system, you roll a 99 to 100, it's a critical hit, and then it randomizes, say pick a number between 1 through 100, Steve.
73.
All right, 73, and are you using a slashing weapon, blunt weapon, or a piercing weapon?
Oh, that was a question? Okay, slashing.
Slashing weapon. All right, shut up.
I thought you were making a statement.
Okay, you slashed open, so your movement is at half for the X amount of time, and then you can put, in big red letters or in a little chat box area, critical hit, you lose 2 toes, movement is slowed for X amount of time. That might be kind of cool, speaking of the role-playing sort of game aspect.
Yeah, my problem with that is that it becomes too randomized, as it were. In these sort of games, one of the core functions is the predictability and the fairness factor. So it all boils down to kind of the tactics you employ rather than luck.
But sometimes I'd rather be lucky than good, because you can only be so good. I like to be lucky.
This is kind of why crits exist in the combat system, which is if you wanted to play a character who, if you wanted to play a warrior, you might not have a very high crit chance. You might just put all your mana into, all your You might buy lots of attack power items so that when you hit someone, they don't get back up. Whereas if you're playing a rogue or something, you might want lots of critical multiplier and lots of critical chance, so that you do when you might not do lots of damage, base damage when you hit, but you do lots of damage based on the critical that So it's kind of depends on how your class is set up. But in terms of doing specific locational damage, it becomes an issue of how do you convey that to the player in a meaningful way that is fair and balanced, and I'm not sure you can. What you can do, however, is if you have a specific character that has like a hamstring ability, so your rogue slices the back of someone's knees and their movement cuts in half because they just had that hamstring cut for a set period of time. So you can kind of convey some of the same role-playing meaning through abilities, rather than have it based on the randomization of managing to get a crit. Because something like a slow, even a tiny slow, can swing a battle between these 10 characters, and it can really make the difference. So unless you know that's coming, unless you can predict that might happen and defend against it, it kind of just runs down to being lucky.
You sound like a control freak.
He's a game designer. It's his job to be a control freak.
I'm like, this is cool. Let's implement it. No, I understand where you're coming from.
What about attack speeds attached to health? Like if you hit the 50% mark, you get a 25% decrease in speed.
Well, I wouldn't want to implement anything like that in a hard cap. I wouldn't want to implement that across all characters, because then you lose the option of having like a berserker who, when they get to below 25% health, their attack speed doubles because they go into a frantic blood frenzy.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, that is one of the benefits of having such such an open system like this combat system here. You can essentially mess about with any of these statistics on a class basis, and have an entire character concept centered around like cooldown reduction. For example, if you wanted to have a character that had, lots of really quick abilities that don't do much damage, but they're firing them out constantly. That's just one character type based on one statistic, and we have how many are there? 15 or so there. But again, going back to this list, my big problem is that if we use this system and this system only, you might find players going, well, I don't really want to play these matches so much. I really want to sit out in the world and make items. What do any of these mean to me? Nothing. Now that's a problem way in the far distance when we have a crafting system, when we have we have a system where you can, if you want to, not play any of these matches. You just want to sit in the world and have a character engaging in that world. I don't want to avoid that as a possibility.
I thought that was just temporary. I thought those were temporary during the matches. Stuff.
Well, I wouldn't want to write two combat systems. So this would be the same combat system you'd use for PvP combat between matches. The difference would be that permanent items would have the same kind of stats on them, but they would only transfer a small percentage from out of matches into matches, so that your character starts at level 1 with any small bonus they have from the items they have out of matches.
So if your persistent character has a plus 10 to something on their armor, and then you jump into a match and you're using that armor piece, you maybe get a plus 1 for that match.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That kind of thing.
So would you just would you just add to the list for as far as things like crafting or whatever you have for the non-matches?
Well, I wouldn't stat a crafting system so much as have a. I don't know. I wouldn't have it. You have a crafting ability of 20. So you have a blacksmith ability of 20, so you can make this, that, and the other. I wouldn't have a system like that. I'd have almost like a tech tree, I guess. I don't know. The crafting system, I'm not sure about.
Well, why wouldn't
I'm not sure you'd even want that in the instantiated games, would you?
No, this is the thing. I want to keep the stats really clean.
I was
might be
just
somewhere
talking
where-
about
If I understand, basically the instantiated games serve two purposes. A, lots of combat fun, and B, depending on how well you do, you can apply your win or your loot or your whatever you get out of it to your persistent character, or to do things for your persistent character.
If you include taking and holding places in the world as well, that's basically it, yeah. Characters will engage in battles to gain experience for their persistent character, and they'll make changes in the world, so take and hold places.
So essentially you're building your persistent character, and you can take, for lack of a better explanation, a little mini clone of them into these instantiated games to help improve what you're doing in your persistent game, but that character is always going to reset every time you go into a game.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you are a single person, if you're fighting someone in a duel, you can kind of effectively apply all of yourself to that battle. If you're fighting on a battlefield where there are hundreds of people, you are less effective as an individual. So you effectively have less power, even though your statistics won't necessarily have changed.
Okay,
If
but
you
you are
appreciate
talking
the kind of
about
concept.
changing the statistics, right?
Between the two-
Between persistent and instantiated.
No, I'm not. I would keep
okay.
the stats the same. My point is that I don't want to write two combat systems. So these kind of abilities would be used within combat. Movement speed, not necessarily applicable. Health, minor health orientation will. Resources will. These things, defenses.
Yeah, the types of stats would remain the same, but out in the persistent world, you've got a level 57 character.
Oh yeah, the numbers would be different.
But
You'd have
yeah,
the same. You'd have the
but
same stat categories, but your numbers would be different.
yeah, when you instantiate in a game, you're always going to kick back to that base start point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whatever
Come on,
your
come on, guys! I
whatever
don't even play these, and I got it.
So whatever your class is.
I think
kind
we're
of level.
overthinking it.
I think you are too.
Yeah, potentially, but I'd rather design it well than.
Well, that looks well. I mean, done to me.
I will
One
note
of the
for
left.
anyone who's going, I know MOBAs, that's just ripped off LoL. It is very heavily inspired by LoL, but basically, when you break it down, these are kind of the characteristics and the stats that you sort of want. So
Right.
you don't
That
need
doesn't
any
look
more
like
than it.
LOL. That looks like a generic MOBA statistics thing. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
when you
are people
break it down,
proficiency?
you're kind of going to end up there no matter
Yeah.
what.
I mean, it's a good thing because it's readable. I mean, you don't want to just see how bizarre and fancy that you can make it to where
Yeah.
hey, this is completely unique and nobody knows what it means.
Yeah, we have everything in
obviously-
there, including space telepathy, and everybody's going, what?
So yeah, I think
Obviously
that
there's-
I think the stats on the left are going to be easier in like the long term, but but I've played way too many MOBAs, so like I can't really tell you it's going to be easy to pick up.
I've
Yeah.
never played one, and they made sense to me. So if that is the system that works best between both persistent and instantiated, then I say let's work with that system.
Okay.
I agree.
There might be some stats if like when we do get around to having an actual like a resources system, having an actual crafting system, that you might have some extra stats, but they would be not applicable to combat in any way, shape or form. So as a combat system, which is primarily what we're building first, then yeah, the next thing obviously is to work out how each of these interact with each other. You know,
Yeah, I don't think
For
it's a
example, if you
problem
have
if the
lots of
persistent
armor.
side has a few more. I don't think that's that big a deal. But I do need to point out, just
yeah, okay.
because I hate spell checks, that you got spell check corrected from intelligence to inelegance. And I only just saw that and I started laughing.
So that's like inverse dexterity, kind of.
I am really rather dyslexic, so shut up.
No,
Tell him to shut up.
no, it was perfectly spelled, which means Word did it to you.
Yeah, that's the thing. I often I often autocorrect things, spell check things, and go, oh, okay, I didn't spell check it to what I thought I did.
It's one of the things I hate about Word. But it made me laugh. Thanks for that moment.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
I want to be high in elegance.
Inelegance, yeah.
That'd be awesome.
NATO, I
was
love you
picturing-
and
I
hate
was
all these
picturing-
guys.
I was picturing Pigpen from the Peanuts as like a MOBA character. Okay, I'm old and
Anyway.
I lost everyone.
No, I got it. I just didn't think it was funny.
I'll punch you later.
Okay, well, obviously the next step is to work out, like, if there are any minor things that need to be added to the list, and how things interact with each other. But that's a long, drawn-out process of banging my head against maths. So if anyone wants to help me with that, because I'm not a very maths sort of based person, that's kind of where my design falls. Well, my design abilities fall apart, is the math side of it. But I have a few ideas, so we'll see.
We need Ryan?
We need more designers. We need
Ryan
more
and
people,
Richard
period.
were both really good at the math side, weren't they?
We just need more people.
Yeah, we do.
Go forth and multiply.
That's a perfect time to take a break.
Yes, it is. Let's do
All
that.
right.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap this up and then show all the artists that we've done. And I think we've got a lot. You've created some stuff today, Wolf, right?
No.
Really? Dead kittens coming your way. I mean, crying kittens. Same thing, but we got some art stuff to show, and then we're going to design or start talking about what the first arena is going to look like and maybe design some of those elements tonight. So we'll be back in 10. Mr. 50 Shades, take us out. Hey everybody, welcome back. I was personally raking leaves in the dark and jumped in a big pile, thinking all the time, I wish 50 Shades of Nelson was with me right now. And unfortunately, he's not. But we're all back, and Mr. J has got the comm right now, showing off a character model. Looking nice, man.
I know. I'm finding it kind of hard just to do all of the armor and stuff off of the base geometry. But it's not too bad other than that.
How so?
Why? Well, like the shoulders, I'm trying to keep like edge flow so it'll move right when you
gotcha.
animate it, and I'm not entirely sure I got it worked out right.
If you want to take a look at some examples, you can get the Dota 2 models online. I think I mentioned this before.
Yeah, I was gonna look at them. I think I've got it so it'll like collapse in on each other, which is kind of what I was going for. But
Yeah. I'm not a great animator, so I'm not entirely sure about edge flow and stuff, but I know it's a thing.
yeah,
Basically,
I'm not
I
expert.
work
They
with
look-
big
they
bits
look
of
pretty
geometry that don't move, so
yeah. Those shouldn't. If they pinch, they should pinch like the cloth would pinch, which I think will be okay. It'll just be whether we can rig it right or not.
I mean, why can't we
That's
just
my
keep them hard surfaces and just separate geometry and parent it to the shoulder? I mean, you shouldn't have any deformation like that, or very little.
Well, I thought we were trying to avoid clipping, like the shoulder pads clipping into the model.
You mean like World of Warcraft?
Yep. Yep, that's... Honestly, that really did bother me quite a bit. because I was playing an orc who had like the biggest shoulder pads in the game, and he'd like raise his arm and cut his head off with his shoulder pad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's one
there
of
is
those things,
that.
if you can avoid it, then do, but it's not the end of the world.
It is kind of annoying though. I was playing Diablo 3 with my daughter online, and I looked at my character holding this shield, and this is a game that was in development for what, like 10 years?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
and just came out. And when I spun the character around, the shield is actually floating the equivalent of 6 inches off their arm, just in midair, not attached at all.
You're thinking
I'm
about
s-
it too much. It's magic. Don't even worry about it.
It's an ability.
But that really annoyed me. It's like, really, all that work? for-
Skyrim did the same thing.
Yeah. What was I going to do next? I was going to finish the hands, which I've been putting off because I don't like doing the hands. And I was going to work on hair. I was actually going to do, found a tutorial that shows you how to do, you know how I did those trees? Did I go, yeah, show you how I did like the branches for the trees and the grass?
Right, just a little planer.
Just
A
like
little
planes. Yeah, you just lay down planes on the head for the hair, and then you paint hair textures on top of it. So I was going to do that. Yeah, and I was going to try painting it too, just to see if I could do an easy painted texture for it.
What are you painting, Nick?
Photoshop.
Photoshop? Okay, I didn't know if you pulled it into Mudbox or anything like that.
I normally do when I do my own stuff, but I was going to try it in Photoshop for this. I've done it in Photoshop before, but it's just easier in Mudbox. But since we got people that won't have Mudbox, I figure I'll paint it and like kind of record what I do just to lay down styles for it.
That would make a great daily drop.
Would it now?
I'm just saying.
I want to do one before I record anything seriously though, just because it's going to take me hours to figure out.
Yeah.
I have
It
some
does.
ideas. I have some ideas in that regard, so I'll just shut Derek up right now and we'll move on, and we'll talk about that
All
later.
right. All right.
What?
Too late. Already done.
Zip it. All right. What else do you got for us tonight?
I do something I was going to throw in the concept art box. It'll probably be easier just to dig it out of my desktop. Figure we'd have like a human, like robot rampaging thing.
Nice. I love that background.
Hmm.
Explain, Lucy, explain. Okay, obviously you did it in perspective, but that's a nice texture you got there. Nice color.
That's actually a photo texture that I manipulated. And then I used the perspective tool to warp it to make walls.
In Photoshop or in Manga?
In Photoshop. Photoshop has that perspective, like free transform tool.
Right.
So I just used that and stacked them up to make walls.
Looks
Nice.
very
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I obviously edited the hell out of them just to make it look like I drew it, but
Well done, sir. It looks like you drew it.
all right.
Yeah, I never would have thunk.
Yeah, I worked out the trick with that like elf I did a while back, and I've been using it on other things ever since.
Sweet.
I like the giant robot rampaging thing.
Yeah. He's like a gun on his arm and like raptor claws. I figured that'd be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, you think? And I like the style. I think it lends itself to what we're trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah, I started out as a doodle, and I'm just like, hey, that could be a monster or something for the game, so I decided to save it and sort of finish it up.
Well done. I'm glad you did. I like the line weight quality you have and taking a closer look. Like I said, I can pick your style out of anything now. I'm getting to know you that well, which is scary.
Yeah. It made
He's
it really
just,
big.
he's just
yeah.
saying that to disturb you.
Oh, that's okay. I like stalkers. It means I'm doing good.
By the way, Nick, I love what you're wearing right now. That's all
I
can
know
say.
you do.
That's all I can say. All right, hey, on top of his like crown-looking thing or the neck head piece,
Yeah.
I see symbols. What were the symbols for?
Just felt like putting them there. I thought I needed something, so I'm just like, let's draw symbols and put them there.
And what do you think I'm going to say now, Nick?
I don't know.
Really? You
No,
don't. They
I'm
have to
very
have purpose. They have to have purpose. They have to have something.
it just says I'm going to kill you. How about that? or I don't know.
Things in mirror may be closer than they appear.
Yeah, something like that. It's some warning thing.
It's in Klingon, Derek, and if you haven't bothered to learn Klingon, we're not telling you.
Exactly.
Say
Hey,
Greeble.
wait, listen to this. Nicht nucht pushnik. I know Klingon.
Just say Greeble. It's Greeble.
What if I told you it was an Elvish robot, and that's an Elvish? Can you speak Elvish?
No. Who speaks Elvish?
No.
No.
Actually, a buddy of mine does.
Oh, no.
Rock on. I want to hear him order a pizza, and that would be awesome.
I'd be impressed if they actually knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would be even cooler.
I wonder if
Pepperonis?
I would actually get you like a copy of your receipt in Klingon if you asked for it, and like one of those places where you can like request stuff on your order.
Or like, you're going to the
Yeah.
doctor's office. We have all these languages that we speak, from Portuguese to Chinese to Russian. I never see Klingonese.
It should be there. It really should.
Anyway, we're digressing. Really
Yep.
well done. I love the color palette that you have. It is very well done.
Well,
Nice.
thank you. Yep. Thanks.
And I know we got a couple more people in here. Who else just kind of popped in? Any other artists here tonight?
We do have Mr. Miguel.
Miguel!
Miguel!
How you doing, buddy? I was hoping you'd be here because, well, I was just hoping. Do you speak any Klingon?
No, I don't really like Star Trek.
Oh, collective gasp. What the hell?
Do not let Angie find out.
I know, right? Angie will mail you stuff. In Klingonese it says, I hate you. No, she'd never do that. She's too sweet. Miguel, let's take his screen. Are you ready, buddy?
Yeah.
Very nice, Mr. J.
Thanks again.
By the way, I love how you parted your hair on the other side tonight for me.
Oh, I know, right? I was just thinking of just you, just for class.
Oh, okay. You creep me out there.
See, you shouldn't do this because I like to play the game where you just keep going until somebody gets uncomfortable.
I've
I
reached it.
always win at those games.
I just started making this character. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I'm looking at it. The typography looks brilliant. Really well
Well, I
done.
just started. I just been working a couple of hours on it, so it's not something very great yet. I do have a question about hands. Are we gonna do very detailed hands or just like low kind of hands?
Probably low kind of hands. It's not a very high poly kind of thing. I'd save most of the polygons for the face, or that'd be the really only detailed place.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I say
just
that-
made horrible hands. Just I didn't know what to do.
And they only have 4 fingers. 3 fingers. I can't count.
2 fingers and a thumb.
Well, 3 fingers and a thumb.
2 fingers and a thumb.
Just
3.
We could always be like, it's cold
Are we-
outside
are we
and just make
betting?
everyone wear mittens.
True. No, you know what? Seriously, I'm the guy that made a gun with 4,000 polygons that you'll see in a minute. And I'm like, no, this is fine. And you're right. I have to keep this in mind. I just went all overboard. But I think the model shows a lot of promise. I love the topology on it. It's nice. It's clean. I think it's readable. And I think you're right on cue, right on target with the low polygon hands. Because, I mean, you're going to have weapons in it. You're going to have shields around, and you're going to be moving at a neck break pace. And speaking of dynamics, how heavy on that are we going to do with magic in the game? Can we do that in Unity pretty well? And
Do what?
explosion
Particle effects?
Yeah, particle effects.
Yeah, Unity does particle effects fine.
Okay. All right. Well done.
You
we'll
can
have
you can pretty much do anything you can in any other game engine. It just won't look quite as pretty as it would in UDK or CryEngine because it's not $1 million engine.
Because nothing looks as good as
But
it
you
in
can do
GK.
it, except CryEngine.
Oh, don't get me started.
them's fighting words there, mate. God save the Queen.
Oh man.
All right, Miguel. So you said a couple hours to do this?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 hours.
Not bad. Not bad at
Yeah,
all.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you about your arms. Did you mirror everything over to one side? Did you make whenever I
Yeah, I'm
model
using the
mirror tool?
what?
So you're mirroring it over to one. You're just basically working on one side. You mirror it over, and it's all pretty.
Yeah, because pretty much of this guy is symmetric except for the cloak here. I guess I'll just model all the thing, all what I can that it's symmetric, and then just model this part, cloak.
Okay. Sounds good. My wondering, or whenever I was modeling last week, I modeled the arms separate and then welded all my vertices together. Did you extrude, or what was your workflow?
I first started with the torso, just the torso, making like this leotard kind of man-shaped leotard or something. If you can
Yeah,
say
I got it.
then I started with making the legs. Here's the part of the boot, and I started more or less around here, and then I just joined it with the torso, and then work my way down through the boot and the feet. And with the arm, I actually started in the wrist and worked my way up. And the hand, it's really bad. I just extrude something because I didn't know what to do, if we were gonna do the hand or the globish like hand.
What do you guys think? I like the little fingers. What do you think?
I think they need at least one more joint in them so we can bend them around weapons and stuff. But other than that, yeah, they don't need to be terribly complex.
Sounds like a plan, Sam. Well done, Miguel. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you got to show off your modeling skills.
I actually can pull up my old character model if you guys want to see how I did hands that were sort of gamey before.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, wait,
Hands that were sort of gamey. I'm not touching it.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think those words through.
No.
Miguel has more to show.
Yes, yeah. Miguel, do you have any more to show?
No, that's pretty much it.
You did great, man. Well done. I'm very glad that you're here tonight.
Thank you.
Quite welcome. Go ahead and take Mr. J's screen again, Mr. 50 Shades of Nelson. Can we see the wireframe?
Yep,
There
that's
we
what I'm
go.
pulling up. I'm trying to get rid of all the mesh smoothness, because I think I did it a few times. Let me open an older version of this.
What's for
There we
dinner?
go. I should be able to pull the mesh smooth off that one. Or not. There are way more polys on the hand than I thought. Somewhere here I have a lower poly hand, someplace.
That character still only has about 3,500 polys, all right?
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad.
Good man. You even did the nipples.
Yep. That's because I was originally started the project as like an anatomy thing. It's got way too many edges. I originally started just with a box with with a couple little edge loops for each joint. Because if you're gonna have fingers that actually like move remotes, you need a couple joints of the finger.
Right.
So you'll end up with probably 16 to 20 polygons per finger on the hand. So maybe 100 polys for the fingers on the hands, and then another 20 for the hand itself.
And we may not need to even go that far. I like
Yeah.
the idea of, there's 3 fingers, basically 4, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, we can definitely do 3 or 4. I mean, it's a cartoonier game anyway.
Well done, though. Very nice.
Why, thank you.
Quite welcome. I don't care what Steve says about you. I like you.
Steve's probably right, though. I mean, I don't know what he says, but Steve's right about a lot of things.
Well, it's all
Don't
better.
say that.
It's all better stuff than Derek says, so I am right.
Yep.
I'm beginning to hate everybody.
What do you mean beginning?
You got a point. Very good point. I hate you all already, except NATO. NATO's just to the point. I know, right?
Did you hear that, Nelson? After all those kind words all these months, apparently he hates you.
I'm sorry.
I love Nelson. He just never hugs me. Do we have any other artists that popped in here that I'm not aware of?
No.
All right. We'll go ahead and take my screen, Mr. 50 Shades. I'll show you what I did, which is a ridiculous high poly count. I just kept going.
We do have
and
a
going and
Mr.
going.
Rohrvig. He sounds new.
Hey, Mr. Roy Vig. I don't know who you are. How you doing? I'm Derek. Nice to meet you. I'm a Leo. I like smoky bar rooms. My turn-ons include sunsets and polka music.
And Vaseline and penguins.
Remember what I said, how I hate you, Steve? Does Mr. Roy have a mic? Would you like to talk?
Not anymore. No, you've scared him away.
Yeah, I think he managed. He's unmuted. It's Roar.
If you would like to chat and you don't have a mic, there is BuzzNet, which is buzznet.3dbuzz.com. If you just log in, you don't need to log in anymore, do you? If you've already logged into 3dbuzz.
Yeah, if you're already logged into the site, you don't need to log in.
And there's the MMO Concept Art chat room in there.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We have plenty of room, and we're silly, as you can probably tell, but we're passionate about what we want to do. We got plenty of room on concept development, you name it. There's jobs to do. And I look forward to being able to talk to you, hopefully maybe one-on-one through emails, and learning from you, and learning what you can do, what you want to do, and I'd like to be able to facilitate any way I can do to help. So if you're unmuted, go ahead and feel free to chat anytime you want. Otherwise, we'll show you these massively huge polygonical, is that a word? Weapons. Huh? What do you think?
Polydolinical? Well, I guess it's a word now.
It is a word now.
It's not like you made up a letter.
Never mind. Lots of polys.
And NATO, since I jumped on your Word doc, this one's just for you. As you were explaining the BuzzNet address, I very nearly copy-pasted it into BuzzNet for him because I was temporarily retarded.
Oh, I do that kind of thing all the time.
All right. Well, anyway, I was thinking these would be more the top, more like a sniper rifle. Obviously, these are human weapons. And again, I feel really ridiculous because obviously I wasn't thinking. I'm like, this makes it look cool, and this and that and that and this. And why does this keep doing this? Keep current color scheme.
It's because your system's slowing down.
Gotcha. Something that they can carry gear. Again, way too many high polys, but
That doesn't. None of those guns look that high poly.
It's the cylinders that are killing him, I think.
the other
Yeah,
cylinders.
cylinders.
Like, if you change the scope to, like, a square scope and, like, did the round bits, like, squarish ends and did the...
Yeah, right.
Like,
Right around the
things
scope,
gotcha.
it seems pretty
You can
high
hide a lot
poly.
of that with smoothing groups as well.
Yeah, you can almost use those just with a few changes, I think.
Okay. It was a good exercise. Again, it's really nice to be back in 3D and do modeling again. I've really missed it. Um, loving texturing so far. And I'm saying that to be real. Once I get it's anyway, great. I love Maya. And I'm sure Max is just as good. I just don't know Max at all. So
Just as good. Yeah, all right, whatever.
again, Steve, I hate you. Hate you with a passion. Man, we're way out of time. We need to discuss what we're going to do next class. Next class, I want to lead off with my art folks, if that's cool, kind of change some stuff up. And what I really want to do is, hold on, let my center show up. What I had was, I wanted to kind of design something like this. This is ripped off of World of Warcraft, but my mindset is we design something like this, just to put in placeholders like, hey, we got the cylinder here, some pillars here, and just throw some ideas around what we may want our first arena game match place to look like, so we can get an idea what we're going to need for assets for it. Makes sense, right?
Well,
Yep.
well, I'd have to know all of what we'd be doing. Are we just attacking bases, or are we doing other things? So they're like middle points to hold and so, whatnot.
Are we actually doing the full MOBA thing? There'll be like little minions going down the middle that you have to shoot and
That was
stuff
my
through?
plan, yeah.
Okay.
Which kind of restricts the design.
Yeah. Basically, the only thing you have to do is have it be symmetrical and have really obvious paths for like little minions to take. You can sort of break up the spaces in between the big, let's call them lane or corridors, fairly simply. There's actually a map for League of Legends up someplace, and that's probably...
So I need to go to League of Legends and play this. I've played it once or twice a long time ago. Is that the game you'd recommend me to start playing and watching and learning from to get a better idea of what's going on?
Yeah, I think that's it. LoL's got a good example.
And I'll play it with people if they want to play.
And I did just post a link, which is kind of a MOBA Games 101 article, and it talks a lot about lanes and maps and stuff. So
Yeah,
Brilliant.
the level design is relatively important in MOBAs.
I'll actually link... They have some like early concept maps for League of Legends, or simple maps for it, and I'll just link one of those in BuzzNet real quick.
Okay, well, that's something I want to explore in depth next class period or next meeting. So team leads, what do you want us to work on next week?
For concept art, I'd say draw a map that you'd think you could use for a MOBA style game, just for our first arena.
Okay. Do we have a theme we want to visit?
Well, what we could do is we could have people draw different maps with different themes, and then we could sort of cherry pick and put the best ideas from each map together.
Sounds like a plan. What? Go ahead, Wolf.
I couldn't draw a map because I don't understand the gameplay.
Take a look at his the link he threw up quick. At its most basic values, it's exactly this. A few very defined lanes.
Oh wow, that's a huge URL. If you take a look at the...
Who has it up on their screen? Let's go ahead and take their computer so we can all see it.
I've got it up on my screen right now.
Mr. Nelson, if you can take Mr. J's. That way we can be all on the same page and you can ask any questions you may have. Thank you, sir. Nice.
Yep. So the basics of a MOBA is you got the middle lane there, you've got these two side lanes that curve around, and that's where the minions walk. So you just need three like big, obvious, like basically roads going through your level. Then you can have all these little like smaller paths in between the lanes for people to go. You sort of hide like special things inside those like little jungle areas is what they're called. So that you don't gain as much experience in the jungle, so it's sort of a risk. You can go get the bonus item, but you lose out on other things in there.
Um,
So League of Legends is a lot like Dota, because I have played that.
They're almost
Yes.
exactly the same kind of game. Dota
Yeah.
is a MOBA.
Yeah, I was confused when I played it, but I have played it, so I have okay. So I have some sense.
Yeah, so the only things you really need are a symmetrical map in terms like lateral symmetry, so each side, like two sides need to be the same, and you need obvious roads or paths for minions to walk down.
okay. We can do that.
Yeah, and then the two bases on either side, obviously, but that's about all that's really the key components to the map.
Can you fight inside the bases, or do you just automatically come out to the bases?
You can fight inside the bases, but typically what happens is the base fights are what happens at the very end of the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's like stores where you can buy things in, like, say,
Yeah.
not the
All the stores and stuff are going to be in the base.
but it and like in Dota there was some places where you kind of go like, off the main paths. You could
Yeah.
go in a little bit.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm still playing around with some of those ideas. So if you want to add like a secret shot somewhere on your map, then I'm not going to stop you. But I'm not sure how I want to do that at the moment. There might not be shops outside bases. I'm still playing around with those ideas.
Yeah, let's just keep it simple and keep everything in the bases now. We can always do another map or add things in later.
Yeah, you can always push them outside of the base. That's
What is the reason for going into things like that forest or the
There
rock?
are jungle monsters, which will give you a buff that'll
Oh, right.
really help you
Yeah,
later
it's
on.
generally an alternate source of experience and also a tactical reason. If you are fighting against, if there are people fighting in one of the lanes, and you want to get the drop on them, and you want to come in behind them, you can go through the jungle and come out behind them and jump on them, and get the advantage on them without them seeing you.
Now my question is, because Buzz wants a World of Warcraft like third person or that sort of visual style. Now in traditional MOBAs, you have almost like the bird's eye view, so you can keep track of everybody. How's that going to work? Are you going to have two different screens or a small screen that shows you where everybody else is at?
Well, you have a mini-map in these games too, so it'll be like sort of like a radar mini-map like you would have in Call of Duty or something, probably.
Okay.
Yeah,
You could also have adjustable camera angles, like from, if you just want to look at your fight, you can.
Well, you'll be able to
do
orbit
that.
the camera around the character and
Right.
look at them from various different
And
directions.
I will say there is a MOBA that is third person already. I mean, it's not popular because some of the graphical things they do, but you can almost directly translate this kind of map into a third person League or a World of Warcraft style game.
Yeah, you do
and to
lose
some
a
degree,
little bit,
that
but-
perspective, your match play has to do with your ability to communicate with your team. That's part of the gameplay.
Yeah.
All right, let's come up with one map apiece, all art people. Is that cool with you, Miguel?
Yeah.
Man, a few words. That's what I love about him. Yep.
Derek, if I was to work on either an environment thing or something like outfit or guns or something, that kind of thing, what would you think is more pressing right now, or what would you rather if I had to choose? What would you rather I spend?
I would
my time?
refer you to your team lead, who would be Mr. J.
In terms, if you're going to do a guns or environment like assets, I don't think either one is hugely critical right now. But so whichever one you wanted to do would be just fine.
If
you
you
can
had to
basically
pick one,
do-
I'd probably say environments more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, the environment's going to depend on what kind of map we end up picking too.
That is true. Yeah.
So it's whichever way you want, because we can use placeholders to sort of fill in the maps until we get environmental assets done, and we can do the same thing for the weapons too. Like
Well,
instead of guns, we can have people run around with like a boomstick, basically.
yes, I mean, there's also, I mean, if it's just random environment ideas that could be, could be in the main world or this world. I mean, in the match thing.
Yeah, we can. If you want to do something, we can find a place for it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like the only really pressing thing right now are the characters. I think just so we'll have something. I think they'll be the most important thing visually, at least for the earlier alpha.
Well,
So
and
maybe-
I would,
maybe
and I
cost
was
and
How to
also,
define a style.
I would also say, like color palettes. Whatever you decide to play around with, play with a lot of different color palettes,
Mhm.
so we can find something we like and start nailing down an overall style.
You know, you may want to try this, like an obelisk. You know, very simple shape. Throw some geometrical patterns in it, just black and white, start out with
Actually,
that, and then just do different color palettes of the same thing so we can see different styles.
Yeah, these games have like lots of little obelisks and other things in them, so I'm sure obelisk will fit in just about any kind of map we use.
That would be my recommendation if Mr. J says it's okay.
I say it's okay, so that's a pretty good recommendation.
2 thumbs up. All right, so design team, what will you be working on?
More or less translating the stats that we have now into the document and working out how I want them to affect each other in combat. So if you haven't read the document yet, it is
And
available.
everybody better of, except Derek, who was lame.
I wasn't
Well-
lame. I looked. I just couldn't find the darn thing. And I have it. I will read it.
And
You
that's
can
not
quiz
lame.
me on it.
If people
Putnish.
have finding difficulty, if people are having difficulty finding it, there is a post on the game design and game mechanics. Well, no, it's not on there. Damn it! I can't even find it myself. I'll make a post. I'll make a post, and I will say the game design document is here, just in case you can't find it,
Okay.
with a link to it.
By the way,
But,
Nato, from what I
it would
see,
be nice if. Sorry, go.
great work. It's great work. What I seen, I got to scroll through it. Really well thought out.
Well, we'll see.
Oh, and while you have my screen, that's sort of what a third-person MOBA looks like. That's the only third-person reference for a MOBA I have right now.
Okay.
Dungeon Defenders 2 has a third-person MOBA style thing, which looked interesting. I don't know how much they still have that.
But yeah, it basically will look like World of Warcraft. The maps will just be laid out sort of like a MOBA, basically, at least to start with.
Sounds good. I really think we're making some marked progress. We're definitely going in a direction, and I'm very happy about that. So we have our assignments. Last minute talk. Go around the table. Speak if you got to speak.
I'm good to go. I read my design document. I'm rocking it.
You did not create anything, though, Mr. Environment Artist Guy.
Mr. Instructor Guy, no, I didn't create anything. Actually, I created a lot this week. It just didn't have anything to do with the MMO.
No, I understand. I'm just giving you shit. I mean, stuff. I caught myself. I caught myself.
Ish.
What, Wolf, be quiet. All right, with that, if there's no more last thoughts, new guy, Mr. Roarer, I don't have your name in front of me. I'm glad you're here. Get a hold of one of us. The more the merrier. You may be thinking of things that we've not thought of yet. So I'm definitely hoping to get some input from you. Guys and gals, thank you very much for joining us tonight at the MMO Design Meeting, and we will see you guys next Wednesday. Oder Mittwoch. That's a German for you. Close enough to Klingonese. Woo! 50 Shades, take us out of here.